Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're live. I yeah. That you were gonna be late? Or we were really trying. Yeah. Is it in live show? Popular mechanics, PC gamer. Oh, here we go. Oh, it came up and I'm like, okay, is it back there? Did I miss something? No, I'm just blind. Come on. I'm about to. How? Not a lot about the Romans, though. Yeah. Audio's going. What the fuck? Yeah, I've got... Jesus Christ, what the hell? Okay. Apparently it isn't. What the shit? I haven't futzed with it at all. Desktop. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can actually hear us through your headphones, though.
Okay, now it's working. I don't know why OBS reverted all of my fucking settings. Alright. Problem solved. Jesus Christ.
I think you
What?
need.
Can't do anything right.
Is there hentai in the corner there? With the
What the hell is that?
I mean, it kind of looks like it from this point of view.
I don't know why that's there, but it's gone now.
Like, oh,
5
look.
minutes ago, that was a hot dog ad. What the fuck?
We know what Buck likes to look at in his spare time.
This is through OBS. I'm not signed in on any profiles here.
Uh-huh. Well then, the developers of OBS, we know what they like to look at in their spare time. Then.
Oh God! Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Oh, in Google, yes, I could.
Could you imagine that? Just like all the ads being tailored towards just shit like that, because continuously OBS itself accidentally added its own history into their browsers.
The fucking V shape on this is so weird.
It is.
It's like, what?
It is weird.
It's like,
I'm trying to figure out where the GPU is gonna go.
Oh well, okay. So with consoles, everything's on a main logic board. It's not like the GPU is separate, like on a PC.
I know.
So so the design of this, now that everyone can hear us, I shall now go into explaining.
And we don't have to rehash any of that Razer stuff.
True. So if you kind of scroll up to that first picture there, so a while back, Sony put in a patent, and in the patent it was for a concept design of the PS5. And I think this was in like European patent offices, so it wasn't American; it was European, and this is actually what the design looks like. This is not like some kind of leak or anything. This is just public information. Anyone who knows how to get there can go look at it. And it's really strange, kind of. And this is the conversation that we were having actually right before we found out that audio wasn't working. Is what it looks like is it looks like a custom PC case that's built for ventilation over really anything else. I mean, it's kind of got an aesthetic to it, but it's not the aesthetic that, you know, consoles have been going for the last 20 years. It's very much a gamer-esque PC type aesthetic. But the whole thing
kind of feels like that that one episode from South Park. Okami Game Sphere.
the Game Sphere.
that was a great episode.
Dude, we just want to play our video games.
But we don't care.
But yeah, yeah, so they heard none of the whole bitchiness of the beginning of this. That's funny.
Yeah, they're just coming in and it's like, what's going on?
Thank
Um,
goodness.
right.
Nobody
So,
likes it when you bitch.
wasn't me, but now we're getting bitchy again.
Bitch, 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 bitch.
Bitch. And I said,
Bitch.
bitch. It's a great sketch.
Yeah, I think it's the only Key and Peele sketch that I ever actually enjoyed.
Really,
Yeah.
I have some news for you, bud. I can show you ones that you probably would enjoy more. It was a great sketch, but I have a shit ton of them that were so much better.
Not a fan of the
Yes, dear. It looks like a V.
Yes, it looks like a V. Um,
Why I'm not talking?
But they want you to talk.
the public says talk.
Okay.
Apparently, I don't know.
What?
Maybe
the
they don't.
consensus.
Yeah.
Consensus is that they want you to talk, dear. They all just admitted it.
Oh, I'm getting my shower.
Oh, okay.
Images. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a
I've
kind
seen
of
pictures of her, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So you
You-
scroll down to the bottom, you
you
get to
know-
see.
You know exactly how lucky of a guy I am.
Mm.
Awesome.
Also,
Wallow
yes.
in your jealousy.
You'll see kind of a little bit less like 3D model-esque, more flat sketches, which I'm pretty sure are what is on the patent itself. And the rest of what we're seeing is someone doing a 3D render based off of the concept art.
Mm-hmm.
So no one had better get mad at me if I use that V space to rest my drinks.
You know, I actually, to be
Condensation
perfectly
isn't very
candid-
good.
To be
That's not
perfectly
what I
candid,
said.
I'm kind of reminded of the original Xbox.
Almost. I think
Yeah.
the
that's-
original Xbox was very much like this, with the big X on it.
Yeah, I mean, it was still boxy,
Mm-hmm.
but it definitely had that relief design in it. And maybe that's what they're trying to do here, except
Yeah,
know,
but I don't know.
louder.
Like, PlayStation has like, if you look at the PlayStation, granted the PS3 kind of had the little bit of a almost
Curve.
oval shape to it.
And the PS4 was kind of on a slant. It's
Slant,
more of a,
but it's
more of a rhomboid than a
yeah,
square.
Yeah.
but it still follows its design. Like, it's not.
How
They're
is
not
this gonna-
coming out of left
Oh,
field.
I see how it's going to stand on its side now. It's got
It's got
feet on
two,
it
two pegs.
on the one side. Okay.
Yeah.
It just
And-
leans.
Yeah, basically. Now there's a lot of things in here that is a little confusing. Like there's 6 or either 6 or 5 USB ports in the front. It almost looks like.
Looks like
I can't tell.
5 USB ports and then a larger port.
It actually just looks like a power button, but I don't know. Which is
No,
interesting.
You can see in the 3D render, you've got 2 USB 3.0s, and then to the right of those, you've got 3 USB 1s, and then to the left, it's either a different type of USB. It looks like
Again, this is someone doing a custom render
yeah.
based on the design. So it's not like that you're looking at like what if you look at the concept, there's no distinction between any of these ports as far as like what they are.
So
But
if
it
you
does look like
If you look on the back, I see
power.
a Cat 6 cable port,
Yeah.
an HDMI port.
Probably an optic.
Yeah, it looks like an optic is the right, and then power is dead center, and then a couple of other ports on the left. But
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's got 5 USBs on the
And
front, and then a power button over the top of those, and then towards the center, another kind of port. I can't. It's bigger than the USBs, so I wouldn't say it's a USB.
it,
It's also, even in those designs, in those sketches, it's also emphasized to be different than the other 5.
yeah, but we still don't know what it is.
Hell, freaking Sony probably doesn't even know what it is yet. Like, let's just say what's something right there. We don't know if we'll figure something out yet.
Um, I mean, it could just be a mini display port. That's what a mini display port kind of looks like.
Could be.
Um, but it's interesting. It's different. But what the thing that stands out for me is it looks like it has a ton of ventilation. And there's a lot of rumored specs, right? What is it? Custom SSD, shit like that. As well as like a new third gen Ryzen. Which, and granted, if they have more actual comparable um components to say something like current gen PCs, as far as power goes, which is kind of what both Xbox and Sony has been saying, then it has to have a shit ton of cooling. Like if you go, like one of the biggest issues right now is with thin laptops is their thermal throttling. You don't want that to happen,
Yeah,
and it degrades the performance.
I think that's
So
one of the issues that the PS4 had starting out too. Is it had very little airflow,
that
so
was
it
the
was
Xbox
getting.
360.
I think that was
Uh,
both of them.
the
It
Xbox
might have been
360
both.
From it, and the PS4 when its first iteration that came out had that problem. I think.
overheating.
Yes.
But like, I think the big issue is a bunch of articles that I've been reading recently have been about the fact that like, holy crap, does uh is there a lot of games that should not be running terribly but are on the consoles, like Control. That game just came out as being like it gets in some places it's getting like 10 FPS.
Jesus.
I
Yeah.
think the Surge also had that problem.
Yeah, but do we talk about that game? Like, is that game even really a benchmark for anything? It failed. It
It
was bad.
if it failed,
Did you actually play it?
you could actually say that the Surge failed. How is it getting a sequel?
I'm sorry. Are we not talking about the same game?
We are talking about the same game. The Surge. The Surge 2 is coming out soon ish.
Yeah, it's getting a sequel, so it did
So
something right.
it must have succeeded somehow. But the Surge did have that frame rate issue where it would start screwing up and everything like that every once in a while, where the frames per second would drop down to like 10.
I must be
15.
thinking of a different game then.
It's possible.
Because
I mean, no, I agree that the game was crap. I played it, but some people must have liked it.
I thought the premise was interesting. It just combat was infuriating.
Well, okay, so what was the game? Like,
Uh, so you remember 2 Human?
Too Human.
Barely.
Yeah, I'm with Buck
Where you
barely.
Where you had certain button presses gave you a combo. You had different types of weapons and things like that.
Yeah.
Think 2 Human meets Dark Souls.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, but like, I mean, what is the game about? That's kind of what I'm
The
referring
game
to.
is about a So, it's kind of hard to explain.
Well, you play as a guy
So
who's
you start out as someone who's crippled,
yeah,
right? You show up, you're getting ready to start a new job at this great high tech facility, and then something happens, and you wake up like however many days or weeks in the future, and the whole facility is overrun by nanomachine virus infected people, and you basically have to fight your way through and destroy a bunch of bosses to blow up the facility. That's basically the story in a nutshell. Or else, the virus, escapes and spreads.
So
yeah,
it's like an early 2000s third-person shooter.
Yes, but it's hack and slash, not shooter.
yeah,
I know, I get that, but like the concept of the story is that basic.
Yeah, it's that
yeah,
basic.
yeah. AI is bad,
It's
okay?
almost like Umbrella Corporation meets Apple.
Yeah, then that's a great way to put it. Because fucking Creo's.
Another one. How you played Prey, right? The new one.
The new one, yes.
So think that, except third person hack and slash rather than first person sneak.
With like a Souls
Yeah,
like dodge and
Yeah.
block kind of
Yeah,
a
Souls
deal.
like Dungeon Block, where there's a big emphasis on the boss fights.
Oh, so it was kind of like a a boss focused game.
Yeah, and some of the bosses were really cool and really fun to fight. The first one
Yeah,
wasn't.
What was
the
the
first
first
one
one?
was. I thought the first one was actually the most well done in how it was balanced and its telecasting and things like that. Its prompting and everything.
Well,
looks
it was a
like,
good
what
introduction.
Was that I think it was a Matt Damon film. Well, like the film wasn't.
Endymion.
Yeah, that's what it kind of looks like right now.
That's basically what it was. Is the guy was jacked into the suit, like literally screwed into the suit. The suit was bolted to his flesh, and it gave him
Yeah.
the ability to walk because he was in a wheelchair.
Okay.
No anesthesia. They forgot the anesthesia.
It's actually not a suit; it's an exoskeleton.
Yeah.
Which I think that's what's been confusing me before I went to go look it up. I hear suit and I'm thinking like Iron Man.
Because I know that I didn't finish the Surge. I got to the point where I think I got to the boss that's like using a staff and he's in this really heavy set of armor that I wanted. But the problem I had with him is at some point he would just automatically counter my attack and hit me for like a third of my health.
Shit.
And there was no way to get around it. It's just, okay, when he's doing this, don't hit him. Oh, he can just interrupt my combo? This isn't fun.
There were a lot of cool ideas and concepts, and the game itself had a really strong potential. It's just that they kind of flopped on the execution of it.
I mean, it was 2016. 2016 wasn't, from what I remember, wasn't a great year for video games.
I think the only game that happened in 2016 that I actually enjoyed was Doom.
Doom. That's all anyone remembers from 2016 is Doom.
Okay, okay, never mind. I'm completely wrong. 2016 was the year of Dark Souls
3.
I'm a Dark Souls fan.
Overwatch, yes, Doom, The Witness, Firewatch, Dishonored 2, Titanfall 2.
Titanfall 2. I forgot that came out in 2016. I love
Final
Titanfall 2.
Final Fantasy 15, The Division, XCOM 2. What most people remember from 2016 is No Man's Sky.
As a flop.
That's what they don't want to remember.
Yeah,
It's
then
No
there was
Man's
the game
Sky.
that nobody cared about, which was Gears of War 4. The Last Guardian remake happened that year, as well as Civilization 6, the Hitman game that was actually really interesting and good, that would changed up how the game went.
Yeah, the one that
Um,
Anita Sarkeesian decided to get all
oh
the
yeah,
honor over.
yeah. Mankind Divided. A big disappointment from that year was Mafia 3. A game that no one cared about again was Far Cry Primal.
I
Yeah.
actually wanted to try that game, but I completely forgot about it.
Quantum Break, another failure, came out in that year. Persona 5 came out, but I'm not a a PlayStation player, so I didn't
That
have
doesn't
any
count.
interest in it.
It's not on
Um,
PC, it doesn't count.
Holy shit! What? A f- a Star Fox game came out in 2016.
Wasn't that
Star Fox Zero.
yeah.
I thought they stopped making them after
Most of the Star Foxes
the
that
failure
they've
of the
made
GameCube game.
most of them that they've made have been like mobile versions, right? But
I think
Star
so.
Fox Zero was on the Wii, the Wii
U.
U,
The Wii U.
which kind of explains why a lot of people don't
Don't know
remember
about
it
it.
happened.
It's just nobody really had a Wii U.
It's because the game.
Oh
was a
yeah,
crap console.
2016 was the year of Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
I don't really.
Absolutely terrible fucking game where all you do is walk around and throw Pokeballs at imaginary fucking Pokemon.
And then you end up getting like completely fucked when you can't, if you don't live in like a major city, because you can't go to the Pokestops and get the balls for free, and you have to like buy them.
Yeah, basically.
And then your interest in the game just is like gone.
Drops. I mean, if they had made it so that you actually had to battle the Pokemon out in the wild and that you could actually battle other people.
Yeah, if they had another like multiplayer interaction in that game, that would have been actually useful, but they didn't.
Yeah, it's
Instead,
like
you're just jacking Pokemon from other people. It's like mine.
Yeah.
I would have been super interested in Pokemon Go if there was battling. If I could walk around, actually fight the Pokemon to catch them, and challenge other players to duels and things like that, that would be awesome. But they didn't do that.
Didn't
So
they
I was like,
advertise
yeah, fuck
that
this.
too? I thought they did.
I don't remember if they advertised it as doing that or not. I do remember thinking that was going to be in the game, and then being severely disappointed.
Oh my god, so the awards that were given out in 2016, being the Industry Icon Award was handed to Hideo Kojima, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I like that. But also in 2016, well before any of this big backlash, but still in the middle of everybody kind of upset about Fallout 4, the Hall of Fame Award was given to Todd Howard.
Oh no.
Now, here's a better one. The Lifetime Achievement Award was given to Tim Sweeney, which I'm almost 100% sure is, yeah, the CEO of Epic Games.
What did he do?
I don't know what he did, but apparently he got the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Okay.
The game of the year was Overwatch. For mobile, it was Pokemon Go. Best reality game, virtual reality, I should say, was Res Infinite and Eagle Flight.
Okay.
Best Nority. Might have drinking too much already. Story and narrative was Uncharted 4. Other people said that Firewatch was better than that. There's a lot of issues with Firewatch, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like that, it was nominated and won a ton of awards, though. Best game design was Overwatch.
Eh.
Best character performance was Nathan Drake or Nolan North in Uncharted 4.
I actually never got to play Uncharted 4.
Highest grossing games, something that I don't think anybody is surprised by, is League of Legends, Clash of Clans, a bunch of mobile games.
Fucking goddamn mobile games.
Yeah,
Go
there's
away.
like in this list ranking from 910,000 with 10 stops between that and 1,700,000 is only two mobile game or two PC games and the rest are all mobile.
Jesus.
2016, the year of the mobile game.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the mobile game is still pretty.
And all everyone wants to remember is Doom.
Well, Doom was probably the only game that came out that year that wasn't a disappointment in some way.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, all right, hold on. I will disagree with that. I like Overwatch.
I think
It's interesting.
I think I played Overwatch for all of about 2 months and then I was done with it.
I think
The
I played
the only
Overwatch for all of 2 matches and was done with it.
the only disappointment with Titanfall 2 was that EA fucked it over.
How'd they fuck it over?
They put it in between the releases of Call of Duty and Battlefield.
Yes, I will agree to that.
It
Titanfall
like-
2 was amazing.
was a good game.
I would still be playing it if I had PlayStation Plus. And still played on console.
People really seem to like Final Fantasy 15 though. That game came out that long ago, and that's
Apparently,
wow.
and I still haven't even thought about playing it.
Is it
Yeah.
15 or
Huge
14?
Final Fantasy
Nope,
fan, but
15.
The MMO one?
No,
No,
the road trip video game. The
Oh.
road trip anime video game.
Oh fuck, I remember seeing that trailer and just going, what the hell's going on?
That's most Final Fantasy games. They're all road trips.
Are they?
Yeah, they're all
I've-
you're traveling from one point in the world to another point in the world to complete this crazy ass quest.
No. This is literally road trip, as in you're all getting into like
A car.
a car.
Okay, and in every single game, there's at least an airship.
I don't know. That was just what it was joked about. Is that this is road trip anime, the video game. Also, it's open world. Which
Okay.
I've never played Final Fantasy, so I don't know if that's different.
They all toward at a certain point in the game become open world once you get the airship, but until you get to that point in the game, it's a linear story thing.
Well, it's not turn-based anymore, or at least Final Fantasy 15 wasn't.
It wasn't. No.
No.
13 kind of wasn't at the same time. In
Wasn't
fact,
that... Isn't 13... Or is that 12? 12's the MMO.
No, 11 is an MMO and 14 is an MMO.
Okay. Why? I'm not even going to try and get into the psychology behind... I've never had any interest in Final Fantasy whatsoever.
Neither have I.
I enjoy it, but I'm not a huge fanboy like a lot of people are. And that's saying something.
I did play 3 because it came with my DS Lite, but that was it.
I played all of them except 12 and 15 at this point.
Well, you were more dedicated than I am.
Well, I liked JRPGs at the time.
Oh,
So
that's
I
where
played
that character
Suikoden,
came from.
Final Fantasy, freaking Star Ocean. Yeah, I liked JRPGs
Right.
at the time. Now I don't.
Also, the Final Fantasy 15 had VR.
Yeah,
Oh,
You could
was.
play the
It had
game
VR
in
support. Yeah.
PSVR, and what was it? There's this like grease monkey girl with just like her tits hanging out.
I was about to say Rico didn't have tits, and then you said.
wasn't
Then I
her name?
remember we're talking about 15. Never mind.
Wasn't her name
Yeah.
Cindy or Sheila or something like that?
I have no fucking clue. I've never played these games. um, but yeah, she wears stockings, panties, a jacket that's like too short for her body, and then just a bra.
Welcome to Japan. Enjoy your stay. Fucking. Oh man. Yeah, there was a big Final Fantasy thing at PAX where it's like, if you bring your raid group and beat a boss, you get a shirt. And I'm like, I'm not playing this. Fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So, anyways,
yeah. Shit, what the hell were we talking about?
well, we are moving on to a new topic of discussion. This is another game. It's a little bit of a niche market, niche genre. Now, Homeworld 3.
Alright, I'll let you guys talk about that. I'll be back.
Alright.
Okay. So, anybody who remembers Relic, the Relic RTS games, you had Dawn of War, you had Company of Heroes, and you had Homeworld. Homeworld and Homeworld 2. Awesome games. Amazing games. And they just did a remaster of it, I think 2-3 years ago, of both of the games. They're on Steam. They're really fun. If you don't like RTSs, don't bother, because it's an RTS. But if you do like RTSs, real-time strategy games, definitely give them a look-see. They're definitely worth it. Homeworld 1 can get a little slow at times, but Homeworld 2 is definitely where the action is. And they announced Homeworld 3 at PAX West.
It says this was in the at the Gearbox panel. I didn't even see a Gearbox panel on the schedule.
Oh, there was supposed to be a Gearbox panel? Did they talk about... Oh, right, you didn't see it. Never mind.
Well, I know what they Borderlands 3 was the staple at PAX this year. And I would have gotten in line to play it, but the line was capped all the time.
Well, see,
Oh,
this is
shit.
why this is why you probably didn't see it, because it was being done by Gearbox.
Yeah.
So that would kind of...
Wonder how much money Randy's going to take from this project.
I don't know. But I am now vibrating with excitement for this game. Because the big thing about Homeworld is it is entirely in space.
Okay.
Entirely. And it's got everything that you would expect from a space-based real-time strategy. It's got 3D movement, as in up, down, left, right, forward, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the big thing about it. But it's all space. You know, you've got fighters, you've got corvettes, you've got destroyers and battleships and carriers and artillery.
How do you-
and things?
How do you
Go ahead.
plot out something like that?
2 clicks. one on the horizontal plane on the x-axis and one on the y-axis on the horizontal plane.
Uh,
So you have to constantly be changing your camera angle to see where you're going and paying attention to both parts of the movement triangle to see where you're going, and there's so much maneuvering in the game that you have to be paying attention to, because some ships, like a lot of ships, if you're attacking them if you're attacking their fore, they're not going to receive a whole lot of damage because they're very heavily armored on the front of their ships. But if you can outmaneuver them, say you engage them in a picket line and then have another group of ships engage from their rear by flanking them, you can destroy them pretty easily. So there's a lot of little things that goes into it. I'm not very good at the game, but I love playing the game.
I wonder how many IPs Gearbox bought from DHQ after THQ went under. Because I keep seeing THQ
Probably all of
being
them.
made by Gearbox.
Yeah, probably all of them, because THQ bought the rights of a lot of the Relic games
Yep.
when Relic went insolvent. Right? That's why Dawn of War 3 was such garbage, because Relic didn't make it.
Wasn't Dawn of War 3 like a MOBA light or something instead of a strategy game? Or at least that's how the multiplayer ended up being?
The multiplayer was actually I would say that the multiplayer was closer to Warcraft 3
Okay.
than it would from MOBA, but people just called it MOBA Lite because it put a lot more emphasis on the heroes than Warcraft 3 did. So if you set up your custom game right and you turned off heroes, then it was a proper RTS.
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It was a proper RTS. But the balancing was utter crap without the heroes.
Okay.
Oh shit, okay. So Homeworld was one of the big contested ones. It was bidded for by a lot of different developers, and one of them was Team Pixel. And they're a mobile developer.
Thank God Team Pixel didn't get it.
Well,
given the reputation Homeworld has, I could not imagine seeing it on mobile.
Well, yeah. So they had stated plans to develop Homeworld 3 on just PC.
Okay.
Okay. So they were going to try to use Homeworld 3 as their entry into the PC gaming realm.
No. They've done desktop apps before, but it seems that they're mostly a.
Well, again, I say then, thank God that they didn't get it. It's like I still haven't played Deserts of Karak, which was the latest entry in the series, and it's a prequel to Homeworld. This one's not space-based. Deserts of Karak is not space-based, it's ground-based, but I want to play it. I just can't afford it right now. I can't afford any games right now.
Neither can I. I mean, I got some money from a rip in. I'm gonna save that to buy something I want rather than something I like bills.
Rather than an impulse buy.
No, bills.
Yeah.
All of my money has been going to bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, all my money's probably going to be going to bills next month as well, because last month was so light. You okay
Just
there?
don't
Pop?
die.
At least don't die on stream. We'd never hear the end of that. Aren't you the ones who have one of your hosts die on stream? Like, god damn it.
I mean,
We
would
can't
get
take
some,
that title
we would
from
get
AT.
some What?
We can't take that title from Adonis Paul.
Who's
He had
it?
a heart attack on stream.
Oh shit.
Did he actually die?
No, he survived.
Oh, okay.
But no, he actually had a heart attack on stream.
Fucking A.
I blame Internet Blood Sports for it. He was doing something. He's like versing against Tonkasaw, I think, when it happened. I think. I don't remember. All I remember is that he had a heart attack on stream.
Jesus.
Yep. Twice, actually. He had a heart attack on that one, and then he had a heart attack later on.
Goddamn.
Guy's a freaking tank, I swear. Still going strong. Adonis Paul is the guy who does the blunt stream.
Okay, that's not something I watch, but keep that in
Yeah, I
mind.
still don't know what that is.
I've watched.
You're
I've
not
watched
connecting anything to me that I know.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of his streams. It's not something that I would normally watch either, but I know the history of it. Anyways, back to fanboying about Homeworld 3. So one of the biggest thing about Homeworld.
Oh my god. Buttercup, shut up.
Throw a brick at that animal.
No, she's 10. I'm not doing that.
Say it had to be a concrete brick. A foam brick would be fine.
That'd probably scare the shit out of her.
Would she stop barking?
Yeah, then she'd go cower under the house for a couple of hours. Which is just what we want.
I'm not seeing a downside to this. So again, like the big thing about Homeworld is its 3D movement. The way it just does everything. It was one of the first ones that actually did it well. It had an really interesting mechanics to it. You had to. I don't even really know how to properly explain Homeworld.
It was for what it did. It wasn't the first one in like the late 90s.
I
somewhere
think it
somewhere
was
around
late
there.
90s.
It's either late 90s or
late
early
90s or
2000s.
Early 2000, yeah.
Because I remember that getting a lot of buzz for being the first 3D RTS.
But yeah, it's like that's one of the games that actually made Relic, like, gave it its reputation. It was really good at making RTS games that were unique in how they did things. Like you had Dawn of War, you had control points that you had to capture in order to get your resources. You know, you had Company of Heroes where, oh, it's been so long since I played Company of Heroes that I don't even remember how that game worked. But just, they all were unique, you know, because up until that point, the RTS games followed the same kind of formula. You had Command and Conquer, and you had StarCraft, where you had fixed resources and workers that went and gathered said resources, and that's how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But Company of Heroes, Dawn of War, and Homeworld, they had a unique spin on how to do resource management and production of your units and how they all work together, and you had to do it a certain way. You couldn't just mass a group of units and send it at the enemy, because the enemy would just be like, die, and you die. You had to have proper unit composition. You had to use proper tactics. You had to flank. You had to do this, that, and the other thing. You had to actually use artillery.
See, that was my favorite thing about Command and Conquer, was just like getting enough money to buy like a retarded amount of just light infantrymen, and then
Just setting them at the enemy.
just like corralling them all to work together. And the game was always like, because it was so old, it was always like, oh, what, I don't know what's going on.
Well, but that was the thing. Is like that's how the RTSs worked. You had this resource you had to gather, and in order to gather it, you built a base right next to it, and then you had workers go and get it.
Mm-hmm.
But like Dawn of War, in order for you to get resources, you had to capture control points and hold these control points.
Yeah.
You know, and you didn't have a big enough army where you could keep your army at all of these control points. Right? You had a unit cap.
And it was a pretty low until, like, I think. I'm trying to remember what the unit cap in Dawn of War 2 was. I think the only RTS. Yeah, it was something like 25, maybe 30.
Uh-huh.
And different units took up different amounts of that cap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can remember playing, I think it was Imperial Guard and getting that really badass tank. But that was like a third of my forces.
Like one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is like you had to think about what units you had, what units in the composition, in the mix you had, what you wanted to do with them, right?
Yeah. And
so if you're fighting the orcs, right, you had to have a certain composition of equipment within your Space Marine squads. You know, you had to have these types of freaking vehicles in order to deal with them, because and you had to really think about the matchup. You had to actually pay attention to what you were getting ready to fight, because that would dictate what you geared your army towards. You know, you also had to think about positioning, because if you just slam your freaking army into the other army, things aren't going to work that well.
Yeah.
It didn't work that way. And the AI was actually smart enough to, if you had an army type, they're going to build an army. If you wiped out their army, they're going to build another army specifically to counter your army.
Yeah.
So it was very rock paper scissorsy. You didn't do that in StarCraft and Warcraft. You had a certain type of unit composition that you always tried to go for, and
it was a race to see who could get the best thing first, more or less.
Or a race to see who could have the most things first.
Oh, that's one of the things I hated. There was what was it? I think it was Age of Empires, the first to get to the nuke. That was, in my opinion, that was the worst.
I think
game
it was
type. No, because I never played Civ. Ever.
Total A kind of worked like that. Except you could both teams could build nukes, but both teams could also build missile defense systems. So you could counter nukes if you needed to.
It was just the. I don't remember if it was either Command and Conquer or Age of Empires, but it was like the first. It was the first to, like, the ultimate weapon.
Oh.
And
I could see that in Command and Conquer. I could see that in Command and Conquer.
Hated that one.
Because the super weapons in Command and Conquer were just so game changing.
Alright, I gotta run to the bathroom really quick.
They had a really long timer on them as well. The thing about Homeworld, like the way they did it was similar to how Dawn of War did it when it came to unit compositions. You had starfighters that were like direct counter to capital ships, right? Mm-hmm. But they got completely wrecked by everything else. And then you had corvettes that were specifically for fighting freaking starfighters and frigates. And then you had frigates that were really good at fighting corvettes and starfighters. And then you had destroyers that were really good against fighting frigates and capital ships. And then you had capital ships that were really good at taking out frigates. And if you didn't use your units right, you were going to get hosed. So you'd have to pay attention. You'd have to have your frigates going after the things that they were really strong against. And you had to have your destroyers going after the things that they were really good against. You had to have your capital ships in the background supporting the frigates and the destroyers. And then you had to have squadrons of fighters going and interdicting on the enemy's capital ships. And you had to have corvettes that were hanging out escorting the capital ships and all sorts of things. You had to be paying attention to your unit positioning, and you had to be paying attention to the resources that you were gathering. You had to have an escort for your resource gatherers because they were really easy to get taken out. And just the scale of the battleground was so massive that you had to be paying attention, because if you got caught with your pants down, guess what? Your army is on the other side of the map. It's at least 2 minutes away from your base.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and those
So-
2 minutes can fuck you up.
And those 2 minutes of you trying to get back to your base, guess what? Your base is dead within 30 seconds. So you had to be paying attention to the positioning. You had to be scouting around the map. You had to know where the enemy was. You had to know where the resources were. You had to know where the best positioning was. You had to be able to see the map in 3D and plan your movement in 3D, everything. And it was just so good. I am absolute fucking garbage at the game, but it's such a good game. Alright, I think I'm done fanboying. Buck's not back yet, is he?
No, not yet.
I wish I could play some intermission music right now.
Do, 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 do.
That was the victory song for Final Fantasy.
Oh, man, then I would have never recognized that. Then your Nope.
intermission.
Oh, okay. Are we moving on?
Nope.
Well, now that you're
Fucking-
back, we can.
Okay. Thought you could keep the talk of RTS going for another like 3 minutes, but no, I guess not.
Well, no, I literally exhausted my ability to continue fanboying about this amazing game.
So, all right, where are we going to
I
next?
talked about everything that was important about it, and so I don't. It's not my turn to pick the next fork in the road, guys.
That would be Buck at this point.
It would be.
Okay.
I will actually be taking this moment to do the same as Buck and Pause have already done by being right back.
Okay. Do we want to talk about? Well, I shouldn't say we, because I was at PAX. Gears 5 or PAX? What sounds
PAX.
better?
I
PAX.
don't care about Gears.
I-
Like, genuinely, I couldn't give two shits.
I kind of care about Gears, but like I don't think I'm going to be getting
okay.
Gears 5, not because I don't like it. I liked Gears 4. I thought the campaign was forgettable, but Jesus Christ, Gears 4 was 133 gigabytes. If Gears 5 has a level that's 50 times bigger than any previous Gears map, I don't want to know how big this game is. if it makes the bar on my 4 terabyte hard drive move, it's too big. So, I was hanging at PAX this weekend. Played a couple of games. Played
Yeah.
Code Vein, which was like this Dark Souls Animu game, and I found out
Animu?
Animu, yeah, anime, fucking, and I found out I do not know how to work a PS4 controller to save my life. I had to skip to the final boss, and I still didn't beat it within the allotted time. Because the attack buttons were the buttons, like the what is it? The triangle and square keys were attack, and triggers were like block, parry, and then open menu. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Wow, that's really weird. Why would you pick the two most convenient buttons to click as be anything but?
I know, because I'm used to, like, with Dark Souls, the attack buttons being attack and block being the triggers. That makes sense. I think that the like bumper was heavy. Fuck, it's been a while since I played Dark Souls, but you had heavy and light on one side, and then block and parry on the other. And that was your trigger and bumpers. That made sense. I don't know what the hell Code Vein's doing. It better not do that. It's probably going to do that, so I'm not going to buy it. Played a little bit of a. We were just talking RTSs. I'm going to kind of steer it back there for a sec. We demoed an alpha of a game called A Year of Rain, which is a kind of a Warcraft 3-esque RTS. It feels a lot like Warcraft 3, plays a lot like it, which is kind of refreshing. But the AI had some pathing issues. Like, so you know how with Warcraft 3 you had to find a gold mine and have your units farm gold, have your workers go from the keep to the gold mine. Well, when I did this in A Year of Rain, I built a new keep, assigned the workers from keep 2 to go to the new gold mine, and they were taking the gold back to my first keep for no reason. It's like, okay.
What game was this?
This was a game we demoed. I think it's either an alpha or beta, but it's called A Year of Rain. It's on Steam. It's
Oh, okay. I've heard of that one.
and yeah, the build we played was it needs work. It didn't feel imbalanced, but it needs a little bit of tweaking.
A little bit of AI pathing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never played Warcraft, but I played enough RTS to, understand what you're referring to.
There was
No, I love that with the harvesters, in fucking they were always the dumbest shits.
mhm.
Like, I remember just hours upon hours of watching a harvester for no reason. Like, I should probably be doing something else, but I'm just watching it and I'm like cursing at it. I'm like, God damn it, you stupid thing! What the fuck are you doing?
Like
Who are
freaking
you?
harvester it's right next to the freaking refinery. Like,
Yeah.
the whole field is right next to the armory.
Yeah.
The freaking refinery. And it's going through the field, and then instead of going straight back to the refinery, it decides to go to the other side's base.
I'm just going to go around the map. I want to drive for some reason.
Yeah, that's
Or-
literally
or
what
like-
happened. It the funny thing is
And it looks like it's reconnected. Thanks, OBS.
down to 2 watching.
Great.
And now it's working.
Okay, so that's back on.
We've only got one person watching now.
Great. Fuck.
How does that make any sense? Okay.
It's just OBS being a fucking shite cunt. I'm gonna fucking rename the stream "Screwed by OBS." again.
That would be accurate.
Where the fuck was I? We were talking RTSs. PAX. Death Stranding was there.
Oh yeah.
There
How'd
was
that look?
there was
Did you
no
play it?
line for it because you had to download a PS4 app to make an appointment, and then you had to pay money to demo the game.
What?
Wow.
I'm not kidding.
Okay, Kojima,
There's nobody
should I
going
say
to buy that
Konami?
game now.
Yeah,
well, I disagree with that entirely, but
the people who paid to play it are gonna certainly probably buy it. I am not really interested in it to begin with, but
I'm interested as far as just being like, what the hell? Why? What? I finally figured out what it is. The mystery has been solved slightly, and so I'm slightly interested. But at the
okay.
same time, I don't own a PS4.
I own a PS4, but I literally haven't turned it on in like a year and a half.
Yeah. I'm just not interested. I went from S-Bus to PC, and I just don't care.
See, I went from GameCube and PS2 to PC, but there was actually a good amount of years between those two. There was a giant chunk of my life where I didn't play video games.
I actually almost didn't get a PS4, but when at the time I still did a lot of console gaming because I had a group of friends that I would play with. And when the PS4 came out, the latest Killzone game came out with it.
I remember when that was
I
all the
literally
rage.
bought the PS4 to get the Killzone so I could play it online again with them, because I had played Killzone 2 and Killzone 3 with this clan.
Mm-hmm.
We were a clan. We weren't the greatest, but we also weren't the worst. We didn't take it seriously enough to be the
Killzone
greatest.
had clans?
Well, yeah,
Really?
it had multiplayer.
Oh.
Killzone had probably the best. Killzone 2 had probably the best multiplayer of all time when it came to first-person shooters, in my opinion. It took skill. It actually took skill. All of the weapons were projectile-based. None of them were hit scan. It was pretty sure it was all projectile-based, at least. But it actually took a lot of skill in order to be good at the game. Killzone 3 was pretty fun. It introduced a game type that was called Warzone, and I think it was the first game, multiplayer game that actually introduced this style of game type where it takes all of the multiplayer match types and threw them into one massive match. So you had team deathmatch, and then you had capture the flag, you had domination, you had assassination, you had king of the hill, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. All the
But it
classics.
was all of them just mashed into one game, and it would cycle through them at random and change the objective type. And
Oh, that sounds hella fun.
Yeah, that does.
Like,
the match wasn't over until it had cycled through each one of these game types, and the winner was the one who had the most points at the end of it, the one who had finished the most objectives. And if at the end of it you couldn't have a tie, because it would be 5 objective types throughout a match.
mm-hmm.
So sometimes you get assassin, sometimes you wouldn't. sometimes you'd have a team deathmatch objective, and sometimes you wouldn't, and so on and so forth. Killzone 3 also had another game type that was introduced. It was more of assault defense type. So you had a group who was assaulting a base and the group that was defending a base. I think the classic game type is called bunker,
Okay.
but you had to achieve an objective. It was like you were actually going through and assaulting this base, and you had to blow up this wall, and you had to capture this control point, you had to capture this choke point, and so on and so forth. And you actually went through this mission, one team against another, and if you it would go through 2 cycles. At one point you would start on the defending team, and then you had the assaulting team, and it would go through the whole thing. If the group assaulting got all the way through and it started over, the only way for you to win, if you were the defending group that lost, is you would have to assault as well and then go through another defense and defend successfully. Right?
Okay, so kind of like a siege mode.
Basically.
Did you play as the Nazis in Killzone?
The Helgans? Yeah, you could play as those guys.
No, did you? Like, what?
Oh, in the campaign? No. No,
Okay.
they were the bad guys. Probably the most awesome bad guys in all of exclusive gaming history, but still,
Why?
they were pretty evil.
Why?
Genocide?
Were they Nazis? They
No,
don't look like it.
no, they were not Nazis. No.
What were they?
This was like science fiction, but
Okay.
basically, there were originally this star system only had one planet that they had settled on, and then there was a war, and the Helgans had lost this war, and they were still pretty similar to the Vespens at the time. They're both humans, but when they lost the war, they were exiled to Helgast, which is think of a death world from Warhammer 40K, if you're familiar with that.
So
No.
Australia.
But
It's a very hellish place, and
okay.
it's very difficult for humans to live. And they basically lived on this
So
world.
they became totalitarian.
They did become very fascist. Yes.
Yeah, given their environment.
They
Mhm.
kind of had to. They were very totalitarian, they were very fascist, and all that. And Killzone starts out with the Helgans invading Vespa again. And that's what starts out the games. But the Helgans are bent on genocide of Vespa and taking Vespa for themselves.
Okay, so they are Nazis, but they're not Nazis.
They did take some inspiration for Nazis, but I would say
okay. So like,
I would say they're not Nazis.
So like Germany was blamed for the entirety of World War One, and it became like a incredibly impoverished, like, nation state. It wasn't even a really well-run government or anything. And so, in order to get back to normalcy, they agreed to allow a guy by the name of Hitler to run their country.
No, I would say it's actually closer to Italy than Germany.
Why?
Simply just because of the way it was, the way Mussolini.
Dude, World War II Italy was creepy.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I would
World War
actually
II
like
Germany was creepy, but
I would actually liken the Helgans closer to fascist Mussolini Italy than Nazi Germany, because it's kind of hard to explain. It's just the overall feeling of how they were. I feel it was much more similar to fascist Italy than it was to Nazi Germany. Simply because of how it was. There was a lot of more. There's actually a lot of similarities between. It's like when they designed the Helgans, they were taking inspiration from the fascist Italy and communist Russia.
Okay.
Okay.
So there was very communistic. You know, there was a lot of things that reminded you of like how their culture was, like how their culture was very fascist Italy, but
Mm-hmm.
how their economic system was, it was very communist Russia. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
so there wasn't. It was very much. Yeah, you'd get food, you get a place to live, and everything like that, but you didn't earn money.
Just the state provided everything for you.
Basically,
Mm.
everything was provided by the state, and with how it was, with how that planet was, it was kind of a survival mechanic.
Yeah.
You know, the resources were so finite. It's like
Yeah. Yeah,
they
they had
had
to
to
control everything.
they
Yeah, and
had to control everything. Yeah.
that's what I'm referring to. It's like, so they weren't some like run of the mill. Oh my god,
They
it
were
was just
designed.
evil to be evil.
They're
It
they're
Yeah, no.
was.
they're
It
invading
was.
they're invading Vespa with a purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're like,
Vespa.
we don't
Think
want
of
to be on
Vespa.
this planet anymore.
Yeah, think of Vespa as a garden world,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and Helgen is a not a garden world.
Okay,
Australia.
here's a random bit of tidbit information that just has nothing to do with this, but I just saw it as I was looking. I don't know why this came up while I was looking up um, Killzone 3. In the 1980s, A&W, they make root beer.
Mm-hmm.
I know
They
what
also
W is.
yeah, they also had kind of fast food type shops that their selling point was chilled mugs and on tap root beer.
Mm-hmm.
And tried to compete with McDonald's Quarter Pounder by selling a third pound burger at a lower cost. Uh, about 2 years later, there was a study that went around that was a very wide reaching study to figure out why it failed. And the response that was most common was because um, consumers thought that the Quarter Pounder was a bigger burger.
Oh my god. I want to die. Just end me now.
I just like what is people's understanding of fractions that bad?
I have faith in humanity lost.
But
Alright.
there's one thing that the Helgens have that
Sorry.
the Vespins just didn't have: aesthetics.
Oh yeah.
Helgen
Same
looked
with the Nazi.
so badass. Probably the most badass bad guys, I'm putting that in quotes, in all of video game history, in my opinion.
Like, I haven't even played Killzone, but the image of a Helghast soldier, I know one when I see one.
Yeah.
I don't look
know,
at them and think generic bad guy with spooky glow eyes. I think, oh fuck, no, that's from Killzone.
I'm patiently anticipating the next numbered Killzone iteration.
You didn't like the one for the PSP? Or was it the
That
PSP?
wasn't numbered.
Yeah, I know. I'm making it never mind.
I did play the one on the PSP, and it was kind of crap.
Yeah.
But
Oh, man.
the one they released on PS4, I can't even remember the full title of it. It was pretty decent. I mean, it was not one of the numbered iterations. It was kind of a side one, but multiplayer was actually kind of fun. Well, that was actually really fun for me.
Oh,
And
you're talking about Shadowfall.
Shadowfall, yeah, it was an interesting perspective. You know, it set the world up for the next numbered Killzone
Killzone 4.
serial. Yeah, Killzone 4. It set it up for Killzone 4, but that
It's
was
not come out yet.
freaking 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think.
2016.
What was that? Yeah.
And Guerrilla
2013.
Guerrilla Games decided that they wanted that the next game that they were going to release and make was not going to be a shooter. It wasn't
What did
going
they
to be
make?
the next Killzone. They made Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, no wonder. Okay.
And
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn,
Such a good game.
it didn't hold my attention.
Oh, really?
The concept looked cool.
The
Alright.
concept was cool, and but the story was just so predictable for me.
Alright. The technical, like, thing about it was actually quite amazing. One of the reasons why it ran so well on the PS4 was something that, a bunch of other PS4 exclusives have been trying to replicate. It rendered the world in a cone shape. Rather than just rendering the entire thing, it just rendered what was in view in a cone shape.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to bring the latency down for like rendering things by only rendering like a small, like relatively small amount of what you're viewing. And because of that, they were able to get the game to run really well.
No, yeah, performance-wise and looks-wise, the game was gorgeous. It was beautiful. The gameplay itself was solid. I didn't find any real glitching or anything. Like, the enemies were smart, but not too smart. They didn't cheat or anything.
Oh man.
The story it just fell flat for me. And when I'm playing a single player game, it's got to have a good story. It has to have a good story, or else
You
I
wouldn't
just
like Fallout 4. 'Cause it had a horrible story.
I don't really intend on playing Fallout 4.
Alright, I'm gonna go fill up my Moscow Mule.
On
I'll be
that
back in a
note of you
second.
being a blasphemer against Fallout,
Yeah, I might get another spritz here in a. Well, it's. No, I'll wait until the end of the stream to get another spritz. Where the hell was I?
Yeah, you were
I
talking
mentioned
about
Death
PAX.
Stranding.
Mhm.
There was an alpha test for Predator Hunting Grounds, which is a team of 4 trying to complete objectives while being hunted by a predator, which looked hella fun.
sounds similar to what was that game that came out when near the end of the 360 cycle?
Alien vs. Predator, was that 3?
No, you had a team of people hunting a monster, and as the match went on, the monster would constantly get stronger.
Evolve.
Evolve, that's the one. That's what it kind of reminds me of.
So with Predator, I didn't get to play it. I just kind of sat back and watched. With Hunting Ground, how it works is your fire team of 4 is trying to complete objectives, and if you get downed by enemy AI, you're revivable. But of course, the Predator's job is to eliminate you by ripping your skull and spine out of your fucking back.
Yeah, so basically
In true Predator fashion.
So basically, it's the original Predator,
Yeah.
where you had a team moving through the jungle trying to complete an objective while all the while being stalked and picked off one by a predator.
Yeah. And you can find mud puddles and smear it all over yourself to camouflage yourself from the predator.
Can you kill the predator?
Yes.
What happens if you kill the predator?
Run. Because if you remember from the movie, he blows up. And from what I saw, it is a fucking huge explosion. Like,
What if you manage to kill the predator before it activates its self-destruct device?
no, it activates it on death.
Uh-oh. Bye, Topaz.
So it's like, okay, you have to outrun a mini nuke. You have 30 seconds. Go.
Go.
I mean, that kind of makes it like, does the match end? Does the predator respawn?
I think from what I saw from the alpha build, the predator does not respawn. You just have to not get nuked and you win. But the predator's got the missile launcher, the predator's got cloaking, thermal vision.
What game is this?
Predator Hunting Ground.
Oh.
I think it would be cool if the predator were to be able to respawn.
I mean, again, what I saw was in an alpha, so
I suppose.
maybe they'll change that, maybe they won't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the idea of the game is kind of cool. I mean, it's like not only are you fighting against enemy AI to complete your objective, but you are also being stalked by another player as a predator. Sounds really cool.
Well, I mean, the predator's not easy to. It's not like, I just put a shotgun shell into it and it's down. It's like, no, you gotta fucking.
Well, no, obviously, but.
Mag dump.
Still, I think that, like, it would make sense to me that the predator could respawn because it was actually very rare for predators to
just die, yeah.
Just to be alone, be on their own. They're usually part of a ship that's a hunting party.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
It's rare for there to be only one predator in a hunt.
Okay, well, maybe.
Like you'd have.
I'm sure then they'd have to take that into account.
Yeah, you'd have 2 or 3 working together, for the most part, when they were on these hunts, and while they weren't necessarily working together, but they were in close proximity, hunting the same hunting grounds, trying to get the best trophy. It was kind of a competition sort of thing. So, but if one predator were to die in the course of the hunt, that was serious incentive for the other predators to show up and kill whoever the fuck fucked up their buddy, because that's an awesome trophy to have.
Yeah.
This one killed a predator.
This one killed one of us.
Yeah.
So we killed him back. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Maybe it'll. I don't know. That's just what I saw. There was Borderlands 3 with the permanently capped line.
I'm not sure. I mean, I might play it.
I don't want to.
Not much enthusiasm.
I don't want to download another client just for one game. I did that for Destiny.
Is that what we're gonna have to do?
Yeah, it's an exclusive for the Epic Game Store.
Oh, I already have it downloaded, so I don't have to worry about that. No.
Yeah, as soon as Destiny has transitioned to Steam, which will be in about a month here, I'm just gonna delete BattleNet.
Really? So, so
you
don't have to rebuy it?
I don't even have StarCraft installed.
You don't have to rebuy it.
You don't have to rebuy it.
You do have to do the transfer before September 29th, or else you lose access to it.
Access to the game?
Access to your character, your gear, everything.
How do you do the transfer?
It's on Blizzard. I don't. Let me.
Oh, okay. I'll have to do that then. Yeah.
Because I just bought it on Steam. I bought Shadowkeep on Steam. So does that mean I'm good?
I'm still debating on whether or not I'm going to do that.
And speaking of, with Destiny, that was my kind of main attraction this year. Is I got to play some post Shadowkeep Crucible. I got a good look at the how they're doing Armor 2.0, how they're doing. They've reworked stats.
Okay. How are they doing Armor 2.0? Like, now you got me interested.
So Armor 2.0 is instead of getting armor with randomized perks, which is still a thing. I believe how it works. I didn't get to physically see how it's done, but I think you can purchase mods to swap out your skills. So you start with, let's say you get a set of armor that gives you submachine gun reload speed, and I'm going to make something up here. Auto rifle loader. So you've got 2 loader perks. Well, you can eventually save up and unlock a mod that lets you swap out one of those perks for another perk, kind of like the guns.
Mm-hmm.
Where sometimes you'll get a gun with 2 perks and you can switch between them. I think that's how it's going to work with armor. All the year 1 gear that has been useless up until now is going to be, you can go out and buy it from a merchant, and it will have the Armor 2.0 characteristics on it. So then you can customize it.
You have to rebuy it.
You'd have to rebuy it. But now it's actually going to be useful and not just be a set of armor with stats and nothing else. I overheard from someone in line that when you purchase things from collections, they start at $750.
Start?
They start at $750.
That's
$7.50?
No.
No.
750
light level.
Yeah, you didn't get very far into Destiny. That's the current cap of light level.
Yeah, I stopped at the start of the shore, or the reef.
The Tangled Shore.
Yeah, Tangled Shore.
Yeah.
I stopped there because, we stopped playing together. Assholes.
I haven't played again dude, I haven't played shit in a while.
They reworked, so you had your mobility, resilience, and recovery skills. Instead of being on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a scale of 10 to 100.
Okay.
Your glimmer cap goes up to what is it now? Like 100,000? I think it goes up to 900,000. Same with your legendary shard cap.
Oh shit. Well, I never hit a cap on legendary shards, but glimmer cap, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So I don't have to just randomly start spending it.
There's 3 more stats. Intellect, strength, and what's the last one?
Intellect.
Intellect, strength, and I think it's not tenacity. It might be cunning, but intellect affects your class ability regen. Strength affects your melee ability regen, and cunning affects your grenade ability regen. So you can tailor one skill to recharge faster than the others if you want more of it. And I got to try out the new exotic machine gun.
Which is?
Well, the name in the game was $ Machine Gun $0, so I don't know what it's called.
Okay. What's its perk?
Pyrocaustic rounds.
As in fire rounds?
As in...
Fire and acid rounds combined.
You would think that your total magazine size for this machine gun is 3 rounds.
What the shit? What?
Each round is high explosive, high impact. 1 shot to the head in Crucible will kill a player. Outright. Doesn't
But
matter what
3
your resilience is.
rounds on a machine. Why is it a machine gun then?
It's more like a railgun, but it's classified as a machine gun.
Interesting.
Is it charged?
Nope, it's pop. Like, it kicks like a motherfucker. So it's really hard to line up the next shot. But you fire it once, you're like, oh, I'm gonna murder someone with this.
If you land the shot.
Yeah. I think a body shot will take another Guardian down to half health from full shields.
Damn.
Jesus.
So, yeah, it's not quick, but it'll hurt.
I would say
It'll hurt
so.
like a motherfucker. Just pray no one has a shotgun.
Yeah, they don't really have to aim.
They just slide up to you and break your legs for the buckshot. Yeah, the newer guns feel like they hit harder. Probably because of the way the stats are reworked. I found that the first time I went through, I played as a Titan with, I think, a pulse rifle, a shotgun, and the new machine gun. And I got 38 kills in one round.
Nice.
This is with the default key binding, so I kept casting the wrong things. I'd go to punch someone and throw up a shield. I'm like, oh no. I'd go to punch someone and throw a grenade. I'm like, why? I don't need this in my life. And I was still kicking ass.
That sounds interesting, though. I mean, I might actually have to give Crucible a try.
Crucible's actually quite fun.
Yeah, I never really messed with it.
Yeah, I don't like competitive, but base Crucible can be a lot of fun. Code Vein. Destiny was really the big thing for me. There really wasn't a lot to do this year. Oh, there was a lot. There was a Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which I didn't get to play because you had to. This is what Ubisoft's been doing: is you have to make an appointment to play the game, and they all fill up within the first half hour.
Why?
Because I guess they don't want to deal with a line.
Basically.
There was some sort of a test for Rainbow Six Siege. I don't really care about Siege.
Neither do I.
Some sort
Wait,
of a...
are you referring to Quarantine? Because that's what they announced on E3.
Quarantine?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Rainbow Six Quarantine is a spin-off of Siege. That's
Okay.
a zombie-like game.
Oh.
No, it wasn't that. This was Siege gameplay.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Fucking Rainbow Six Quarantine would... That's something that would make Tom Clancy roll over in his grave.
Why?
Because that's not the kind of thing he'd want to write. That just sounds like the least Tom Clancy thing I can think of.
Okay. Alright. Alright. And The Division?
There's no zombies in The Division. There's just bad-tempered people with guns and hunters, but we don't know what the fuck hunters are.
Exactly. They're dead things.
Are they?
That wear... Are we talking about the guys in the hazmat suits? No.
No, those are the cleaners.
Talking about Division.
Cleaners.
Talking about the Division 1. The hunters are the guys with, like, the black ballistic masks and solid black armor that hunt Division agents.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. That must be...
Played Division 2 yet?
I can't run it.
He tried, but he couldn't play it. I don't own the game.
I can't run it. I want to run it, but I can't.
You should think about upgrading, buddy.
I'd have to change out my board along with my processor to do that.
I've told you I can help you, like, get something that's not retardedly expensive, right?
Not that
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I need to, like, get on that because this Franken rig is getting old.
Except for the graphics card.
The graphics card's fine. I could probably use a new hard disk drive just because this one's 6 years old.
Yeah, that's probably.
Don't you just switch over to solid state completely?
Because 4 TB is still pretty expensive for SSD.
Okay.
I'm
But
completely.
a 1 TB for an SSD is actually very affordable. I got one for like $40.
Well, maybe I'll do that for my main drive.
Okay. All right.
My 4 TB
Alright.
disk drive is just extra storage.
All right, Pig. Let's talk about the differences in SSDs when it comes to who makes them and their pricing. Okay.
Let's.
All right. You
not.
have no. You have two. You have two currently that you can buy that is at all just sensible, if not three. Samsung, Intel, and Western Digital. Western Digital is still iffy. We don't know how their regular Samsung drive or SSDs go.
How about you explain why those three are the only ones that you should buy?
Okay. So first of all, speeds that are actually what they claim to be. Samsung. I mean, at this point, if you're gonna buy an SSD and you want speed, you buy Samsung because they have the most stable and solid SSDs. The biggest problem with
what kind of differences are we talking in the speeds? Are we talking megabyte differences? Are we talking about
okay,
kilobyte
so here's
differences? Are we talking
the
about
cap
gigabyte
is
differences?
500. So the
Uh-huh.
cap is 500 megabytes per second, right? That's the cap of any SSD. They can't go higher than that.
Okay.
That's because of SATA 3 and actually mainly because of SATA 3. You get about I want to say like 200 consistently. Now, consistently is because okay, how to I'm drunk. Like, I don't even think you both realize this. I'm actually quite drunk right now.
I realize it.
But here's I'm gonna say here's the thing a lot. Okay.
You do that anyway,
So,
man.
the longer you use an SSD, the more it's liable to crash and you're going to lose all your data. I've lost 2 SSDs because of age. Hard drives last a shit ton longer, and they can be readed and writed to way more times.
Read and written to.
Thank you.
So,
The thing with
true story, my hard disk drive actually failed before my solid state drive did, and I got them at the exact same time.
that. Okay, so I can't say I'm surprised, but I also can't say that it's because of anything other than just like God.
Use?
Information that use, but information that I have normally in my sober brain is just not here. It's not at my disposal right now.
So, here's the thing I'm going to go ahead and preface this with. Would actually still be fine for you to get one of the cheaper SSDs at the $30-$40 range. And if you really are so concerned with it crashing or dying because it's not the super expensive, only has an edge of like 3 or 4 megabytes of read-write speed.
3 or 400.
3 or 4.
100.
4.
100.
No. That's you're only going to see 3 or 400 difference of megabyte read-write speed if you're looking at the difference between using a SATA connection or a PCI Express connection.
That's actually 3 or 4,000. That's a whole other jump. But no, the random read and write of different SSDs is actually what you base it on. Um, so the random read and write is like when you're playing a game. It's not when you're like transferring files. It's like when it's accessing and then not accessing, accessing and not accessing. SanDisk comes close. Crucial also comes close. But the cheaper ones, they fail faster because of how many times you read and write to it. They aren't rated for long amounts of time. And they don't hit those higher read and writes randomly as much. You can so if you look at like
How big of an impact on your performance are you actually looking at, Pav?
depends on what you're doing.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, if you're editing films like what I do, it's huge. If you're playing video games,
How about 3D rendering?
which I do a
huge.
lot of.
That's great.
Huge. Even more than editing films.
Okay, now we're actually getting to the useful bits of information. So if you're just playing video games, like I do, the cheaper one is fine. In fact, it would actually make sense to do the
Yes.
cheaper one, even if you're looking at them failing a little bit more frequently. You're looking at the difference between these, the cheaper one, you're looking at $40. The more expensive one of the same size, you're looking at what, $120, $180?
No. Here, let's see.
See, my big concern is just
I was just in a Micro Center on Sunday.
Okay.
The Samsung at 1,000 gigabytes, 1 terabyte, was
It's
$230.
135.
At the Micro Center that I was at, was $230 fucking dollars.
That is horrible. You should never buy anything from there.
It was the latest Samsung Evo 1 terabyte solid state drive.
Was it? Wait, are we talking M.2 or SATA?
M.2.
Oh, M.2. Yeah, no, I can understand that. But he doesn't have M.2. Now, if he wanted to go to M.2, it's actually. I'm sorry. Go
You're
ahead.
completely missing the point.
Okay, I will let you talk.
If all you're doing is playing video games, if all you're worried about is it failing faster, it is more cost effective for you to have a backup external hard drive that you back up to, say, once a month, and buying the cheaper solid state drive. It's more cost effective to do it that way than it is for you to spend money on the latest, greatest solid state drives, because they do cost an arm and a leg.
Okay.
If you were doing a lot of 3D rendering or video editing and you don't want to spend an extra hour or two waiting for the read-write functions of compiling to finish, sure, you've got an argument. But for the average person who's only going to be playing video games or only wants to be able to transfer files faster than they would to a hard disk, then the mid-tier $30 or $40 1 terabyte SSD is going to work fine. Is there anything that you disagree with in what I just said?
Okay, hold on. No, don't laugh. Don't laugh.
And
No,
I'm just
because I see your argument. I 100% see your argument. And I'm not discounting it whatsoever. And maybe this is because I've dealt with failing hardware and bullshit
I
for
have too.
years.
So have I.
See,
I've been building my own computers for a
y'all-
long time. I've had my fair share of failures.
Hold on, let's let Buck talk because
Go ahead,
Buck wants to.
Y'all are going back and forth about speed, and what I'm concerned about is data recovery.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going
That's
to
what I'm
recover
referring
anything
to.
from an SSD.
That's
what I'm
why I
referring
don't
to.
want one.
No. Hold
You-
on. That's the reason why I made this statement. Now, granted, I would be having a different discussion if I was talking to you, Pig. With Buck and me and Buck have so video games, right? I if a hard drive if an SSD fails on me, right? Because I have 5 SSDs in my computer. If an SSD fails on me, all I have to do is put in another one, go to Steam, and re-download all the files. That's fine.
Do you
It's
have
easy. I don't have to deal with that.
You also, when it comes to data recovery, you also have options for doing a RAID array, a
The,
mirrored RAID array.
true. That is very true.
If you're absolutely worried about data recovery and making sure you have redundancy in case one of these hard drives fail, you can still set up a 1 terabyte RAID array in mirror.
Hold on. And as much as I agree with that statement, when it comes to just the option to not have to do that is appealing to me.
I would, even if you had the option of not doing that,
Not
be
having
as
to. Not yeah, I can hear you.
if you had, well, I'm sorry, my screen went blank because it went to sleep because I've just been sitting here talking rather than clicking around on it. But even if you have the option to not do it, if you're worried about your data recovery to the point where you'd rather go to a hard disk drive, then you're better off spending the money and getting 2 SSDs than getting the hard disk drive and setting them up in a RAID.
And actually that is very much something I agree. Buck, at this point in time, now that the new and improved hardware is M.2, there is no reason to stick with an SS or to stick with a mechanical. Like I have it because you can't transfer speeds above 100 megabits per second or a gigabit per second anyway. So my servers and stuff have hard drives in them. But if we're talking your main computer, there is no reason not to have SSDs. The price has gone down enough to where it's not that much different. They're very
Yeah,
affordable. They're much faster and the only reason why I make
exponentially
that
faster.
yes. The only reason why I make the statement of going with a Samsung for Buck is because I've never had an issue. And
I've
they
never. I will agree with you. My SSD that I just replaced was a Samsung. I got it 6 years ago. Never had an issue. It was only like 2 or 3 months ago where I actually noticed that the read and write speeds were horribly slow compared to when I first got it. We're talking about it took 3 minutes for my computer to boot. I bought a new SSD. I've got as my primary, and now my computer boots in 30 seconds.
yeah, and that's also another thing. There has also been an incredible like just because of the age of SSDs at this point, we have now gotten to the point where they have become more how to put this, SSDs has aged like a fine wine, right?
They've gotten better with time.
They've yeah. And
They're
so we've gotten to the point where if you were to purchase a 1 terabyte SSD of the current generation, which is the 860 Evo, for $135,
Yeah.
that is, I understand that's a little bit of expensive, but that's much more expensive.
let's just say that 1 terabyte SSD 6 years ago would have cost $1,000.
How much does a
With-
4 terabyte SSD go for?
Like
You're
200,
looking around
300 bucks.
From
Jesus.
Samsung, it's going to be more than that. It's probably going to be closer to 500.
Yeah, it's 5.
Christ.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing with and the reason why I stick with Samsung, it's because of that longevity. I cannot afford to lose a hard drive or an SSD. I cannot afford it. And so that's the reason why I stick with Samsung. Samsung has a ton of things for data recovery. They are very, very good at creating something that is. God, I'm sorry. I'm really drunk, and I'm having a hard time trying
So
to
let
really
me-
come up with.
Let me
Yeah,
try
I'll
to
let-
finish it for you. Samsung has a lot of options for recovering data. They have several different methods in order to secure your SSD and actually.
Jeez.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I coughed. No, keep going.
They have several methods to go into an SSD and recover whatever data is in there. 9 times out of 10, when an SSD fails, it's in the NANDs, which actually holds the data. Just like if you had a hard disk drive where it had a sector fail, guess what? That whole sector's fucked. The whole
Yeah,
thing. You can't even take the disks out and plop it into a reader to pull the data off that sector because the sector is
$1,000.
yeah, it's
You
literally
can, but it's like $3,000 to take it
it
to a clean
costs
room.
it costs a lot of money for one, and two, when a sector fails, it's not failing because the read write ability of the hard drive is failing. It's the sector's ability to hold data is failing. It's losing its
Magneticity.
magnetivity. It's
Whatever.
magnetism. It's lost its magnetism. It does not hold a plus or minus charge anymore.
That's another thing to bring up is SSDs don't okay, so we mentioned this a little bit ago, back farther in the stream. Hard drives have multiple points of failure. Multiple points of failure. If you
You've got
drop a
the
hard
spindle,
drive, yeah.
You've got the spindle, you've got the read write arm, you've got the motors in there, you've
Yeah.
got the data transfer circuit board
You've
that's
got
in
the
there.
chipboard, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have a ton of things, whereas an SSD doesn't have any of that. There are no moving parts.
The SSD is one chip. Well, not one chip, one card with chips on it. SSDs, you can liken them. Well, no, you can't even liken them. They are exactly that. They are what used to be read-only memory in your BIOS.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what
Well,
solid state.
it uses NAND flash instead, which is much more
more
reliable
sophisticated.
and
It's more.
fast.
Yeah, it's much more.
But so here's the thing. I had a 100 back in 2006. My parents, so back in 2006 for my birthday, I asked for a bunch of computer parts, and so my parents, actually it was like starting around then for like the next few years, my parents and grandparents bought me these parts in order for me to build a PC by 2009. One of them was a 120 gig 840 Evo SSD, and that was the first part I got. It was from 2006. It finally failed about a year ago. I think, yeah, around a year ago. By the time it failed, right? And when I refer to failed is it would disconnect. So if you try to install an operating system on there, sometimes when you boot up the computer, it wouldn't be there, or sometimes in the middle of using it, it just would not show up in Windows, or even in the BIOS.
Okay.
But here's the thing.
Whereas mine was starting to fail because its ability to read and write was slowing down to the point where it just took forever to do anything.
So but here's the thing: I could still read off of it. All of the data that I had on there, because I could get Windows to recognize it, and so I could still transfer off all the data off of that SSD onto another drive. And by the time it failed, like by the time it like wasn't able to be detected by anything, I had everything off of it. Unlike a hard drive, where if a hard drive has that problem,
It's a sudden
it's
problem.
yeah, and it's
It's
done.
a sudden failure. One day it works just fine, the next day it doesn't. With an SSD, you're going to see a gradual degrading of its ability to do its job.
Yeah,
So
and
you'll notice it takes 2 minutes to transfer a file instead of 1 minute. It takes 5 minutes to load a game instead of 2 minutes. It takes 3 minutes to boot your operating system instead of the 30 seconds. It's that type of thing. That's how it starts failing. Is you start noticing that everything starts to take longer than it's supposed to.
and
But
even then there
all of
are
your
ways
data
to
is
fix
still
that.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
all of your data is still there. It hasn't just disappeared into the void. It's reliable in that way, which is why solid state drives. It's why we've moved towards solid state drives. They're more reliable. They're less prone to failures. You can throw a freaking solid state drive across a freaking room and it'll probably still work just fine.
well, as long as
Knowing
you
my
don't
luck,
break
that's
the
not going to happen.
connectors. Well, as long as you don't break the connectors, which are actually inset into the drive, so it's a lot harder to break those
It's a
anyway.
circuit board.
Well, no, I mean on the outside. Never mind.
Let me-
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Let me ask you this.
'Kay.
You think running a solid state hard drive combo would be a bad idea?
Okay, hold on. Let's
So
roll
I
this
will-
back.
I will
Let's roll this
spec-
No,
back.
I will-
no. Listen,
Yeah, that's what I
Running a
mean. I
solid
want
s-
him. Hold on. I want him to clarify that statement.
Because I want to specify. My main drive, my main disk drive, has my operating system on it and a few programs. I would, if I were to get a solid state drive, that would have my operating system and whatever programs I had from the 1 terabyte hard drive, while the second 4 terabyte hard drive is just storage.
so
and that's how I run things.
That's how I ran things too. Up until last weekend, I had a 256 gigabyte solid state drive that ran my operating system and the programs I most frequently accessed. Right.
Okay.
But Steam, Blizzard, BattleNet, Ubisoft, any of my game stuff, any of my media players, OBS, Kryta, things like that, those were on my hard disk drive.
Okay.
My solid state, all it held was the operating system and my drivers. My GeForce Experience, my Razer Synapse, my Corsair IQ, those were all on my solid state drive.
And let me give you a contrasting thing. So I keep important data across. Actually, the thing that Pig brought up, I have probably about 20 different hard drives, and across those hard drives, some of them are RAID as in redundancy RAID, not speed RAID. Um, and some of them are just there for storage. While I have 5 hard drives ranging from, I think, one 256, the rest of them are 500, and then one terabyte. And so all of my stuff is ran off of SSDs, and then I have an NVMe as well
Okay.
that I hold. I run projects off of. So the current project that I'm working on, the current film that I'm working on, is ran off of my NVMe. Now, if we're talking about stuff like what you and me do, you do 3D rendering, I do video rendering. These hit the same points. 3D rendering has a bunch of different requirements as far as other parts, but it falls in line as far as storage goes, the same as what I do.
Mm-hmm.
If you want faster, just as far as storage goes, you go an NVMe. But a SSD, just compared to a hard drive, you're going to notice a difference.
You're
Oh,
going to notice a massive difference.
I don't doubt that I'll notice
So-
a difference.
Right.
Here, to answer your question, if you wanted to run an SSD for your operating system and then a hard drive for your storage, like you just described, you'd be able to do it.
Okay.
You would have similar
That's-
performance. Let me finish. You would have similar performance to what you have right now in regards to your video rendering and your 3D imaging rendering
Mm-hmm.
as you would right now, right? But if you used an SSD as your main storage as well as your operating system, then you would probably cut your rendering time in half.
So, to explain, what I was referring to, you can always render to an SSD.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you wanted to go off and get like an SSD. So like my NVMe is the fastest storage I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sits at 3,500 megabits per second. Compare that to my SSDs, which sit at 500 megabits per second. Um, uh, I render to the NVMe and the SSDs. You can always transfer that after the render is done
Yeah.
onto your hard drive. That's how I do it a lot of the times, where I render to the NVMe, and then I have a renders folder on my hard drive.
Okay.
And after I'm done rendering it, I just throw it on my hard drive, and
Okay.
it cuts the render times down in like almost an eighth.
Okay.
Of the
The
time.
only reason I say that I would be using the hard disk drive as storage is A, it's only about a year and a half old compared to the main disk drive, which is pushing six. I think it just about broke 6 years now. And B, it doesn't sound very easy to get a 4 terabyte solid state
So-
drive.
It's
So,
They
so
are
I
expensive.
actually
So-
most of my hard drives that I have, most of my SSDs that I have, and most of the SSDs I would suggest someone to get is 500 gigs. Now, the reason why for this is
I've got too
because
much shit for
I-
that.
No, hold on.
Let him finish.
Let me explain. So, I have been working with computers since 2006. How long has that been now? Jesus.
13 years.
That's 13 years. You know what I found? No matter what I do, and I do a lot of stuff that requires storage, a main drive where your OS goes doesn't require more than 500 gigs.
No, I would even hazard to say it only needs half of that. 256 with Windows 10.
Okay, so there was an increase. There was a 60 gig increase with the most recent Windows 10 update. So I would almost add, like that restarts my 500 gig, like theory, and this is
I
this is
have
just based on
100
my experiences.
So my right now I've got 151 gigabytes free on my 223 gigabyte. Well, it's a 256 gigabyte drive, but it's 223 gigabytes of usable space. I've got 151 gigabytes free of that. The 36 or so gigs that aren't usable is my image.
So here's what I will actually the reason why I will state this 500 gig, like kind of argument. One of the things that I've learned over the years is your speeds so the way that a lot of SSDs, mainly SSDs, work is that they use the free space as a cache. Basically, it compiles
Okay, I see where
everything.
you're coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it compiles everything and caches it in a faster version of it. Um, and
You've got
so
short-term storage memory
yes, yeah.
portions, and you've
So
got long-term, and they all add together for that full size.
yeah, and so if you get a 500 gig, you're not going to run into your cache limit because no matter if it's a hard drive, SSD, or NVMe drive, you will never want to fill it. You don't want it. So there's the reason why when you get to a certain point with Windows, with a hard drive, Windows will show the bar as red,
Yeah.
like this is full. That is because you've gone past the point where the cache is needed. How I determine that is what's the biggest file that I'm going to transform. I mean single file, not multiple files, single file. So the
Okay.
biggest single file that you could probably have would be like 60 to 80 gigs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with things that are that big, and so 60 to 80 gigs is the biggest. And so the less the when you get a 500, you can put more stuff on that SSD before you
Mm-hmm.
hit that 60 gig cache limit. Um and uh so getting something, and this is how I work, is I get a 500 gig SSD, and that's my main drive. And then I have a 3 terabyte or 1.5, because that's the hard drive that I've had. Um, a hard drive for just data, stuff that I don't want to lose, and I treat it more like a savings account than a checking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just put things there and leave them there. Don't
Yeah,
run
don't
it.
mess with it. Don't
Yeah.
mess with it. Now the reason why we
Yeah. I
originally
should.
suggested a one,
I should
the
probably
reason
delete shit off of my C drive.
I can't make any judgment calls for anyone because of how I keep storage. It's retarded. I
You
have
want to
like
hear how much space I have on my main drive?
Coming back to the original premise
Oh
of the
man.
discussion, though, Buck, if you wanted to, you could very easily run an SSD and a hard drive at the same time.
Okay.
It
it's
functionally,
almost the most suggested way to do it
it is the most suggested way to
for the
do it,
past like 10 years.
because with hard disk drives, the size of their storage it's still I would say it's still higher than what SSDs are capable of in the affordability range.
Yeah.
It's just that they're slow. Their read write speeds are there's a hard cap on them. You know, they're HDDs, hard disk drives are at their physical limitations at this point, which is why we're moving towards solid state, because we haven't found a physical limitation to a solid state drive.
Actually, we
If you
have. We
you could
have.
just make the damn thing bigger. Instead of being a 3.5-inch drive, you can make it to a 6-inch drive, right? The only limitation to an HDD is the actual physical size of the circuit board it's sitting on.
Okay.
Right now, what you normally think of when you're thinking of a solid state drive is a 3.5.
All
But
right, 2.5. 2.5. You got that mixed up.
sure, 2.5, whatever. But it's going to get to a point where our architecture, our circuitry architecture, is at its physical limitation. You know, in order to get more space in those drives, we're going to have to start upsizing the cards. We're going to have to start sandwiching 2 cards into one enclosure. We're going to have to start having bigger Instead of the 2.5-inch size, we're going to have to move up to the 3.5-inch. You know, we're going to have to move up to a 4-inch or whatever. That's how we're going to be able to expand our space to even more. But that being said, we're at what, 8 terabytes can fit in a 3.5-inch right now. With our
4.
current 4,
Oh
is it?
wait. With a 2.5.
With a 2.5, what is the biggest size you can possibly get right now with our current architecture?
Currently, it's 4.
Currently, it's 4. Okay. So
And the reason for that is actually more the market than anything else.
So well, let's ignore the market for a second and talk about what's the biggest size that we can fit in a 2.5-inch.
Okay, have you so let's roll this back. So you have a hard drive, Buck.
I have
And
2.
typically
Yeah.
you have 2. How would you say the hard drive is as big as the palm of your hand, or 3 times the biggest your palm of your hand?
About the size of my hand.
Like you can. Oh man.
I can physically grab it with one hand, and well, I have small hands. Fucking.
Okay. All right. So have you ever owned a laptop?
Yeah.
You ever opened a laptop?
Like, gotten into the innards? No.
Okay.
There goes that analogy.
Okay. So I'm trying to like visualize this for you. So a 2.5-inch drive fits probably. It's around the size of a card.
I gotta wait. I got an idea.
Okay.
Okay. Buck, do you remember old zip drives?
No.
Damn
Okay.
Never used
Because I
one.
remember old zip drives.
Yeah. So old zip drives, they were basically like old zip drives. They were basically floppy disks, except that they were bits smaller and they were faster. Right?
Okay.
You remember the size of a floppy disk,
Oh,
right?
I remember the floppy disks, yeah.
Okay.
Remember that.
Floppy
Hard
disks
drive
themselves.
Uh-huh.
You know, if you took like a finger length off of one of the sides and stacked 3 or 4 of them on top of each other, that's the size of an SSD.
Okay.
Okay? Is that bigger or smaller than one of your hard drives right now?
Sounds like smaller.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Wait.
So the 2.5-inch hard drives and the SSDs are the same size. The 3.5-inch hard drives are, I want to say they're I don't understand why they're called 2.5 and 3.5, because you can almost fit like 6 2.5-inch drives in a 3.5.
Its length, its depth.
Yeah,
It's just the size of the drive bay that they fit into.
So if you look at an SSD, right? An SSD has a casing to make it 2.5.
Uh-huh.
If you were to open up an SSD, it doesn't even fill up half of the casing. The innards of an SSD. It fills up it's like a little bit less than a half. It's a chip. It's a PCB with little small modules on it.
Think a stick of
they-
RAM
Okay.
Yeah.
without any shielding on it.
So
Okay.
RAM has like these little modules that are on it, like little black boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically, think a square form, like less than a rectangular, a square form. That's an SSD. And so that's the reason why NVMe works, is because NVMe is basically an SSD without the casing.
slots into the PCIe slots, doesn't it?
As it doesn't have to take into account. It doesn't have to use the SATA anymore, so it doesn't have to be that big.
It has more lanes that it can use for data transfer. It's like it
Yeah.
uses the same bus that your graphics card uses.
Okay, so my board might be able to work with one.
Well, okay, no, we've gotten really off topic. It's also 8:34 on my end. And
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
gotten
it's,
a bit-
it's
kinda
past Pig's
bit
bedtime.
ranty. I love you guys, but I feel like Pig staying up a bit too late. We might have lost our audience completely.
This conversation was incredibly important to me. Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, again, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. If any of you have actually stuck around for this nerd conversation that we were just taking part in, let me actually see how many people are in the audience. Just one. Look at that.
This still says
Well,
4.
one person who's watching us. Thank you very much for joining us and sticking around. This has been your Locked and Loaded Monday night. Join us next week when we do whatever the fuck we have no idea what we're doing yet. Gentlemen, closing remarks.
I'm a complete layman when it comes to tech. Send help.
Pav,
I might have drank too much.
that's a given. Whenever you're drinking, you drink too much. Mine is I had a lot of fun despite the headaches that drunk Pav has given me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and good night.
Good night.